Good evening. Praying, walking, talking witnesses of Christ. Although Epaphras and not Paul preached the gospel to the small group of believers in Colossae, he wrote a letter to them to encourage them. After all, the bond of unity between believers does not lie in who preached the gospel, but in the fact that the Lord sent someone and brought people to faith through their preaching. What matters is that the gospel reached them and bore fruit with them, just as in the rest of the world of that time. In ever wider circles, the gospel is spread and every believer is involved in this expansion. In Paul's encouragement to the believers, there are three verbs in particular that require our attention and that can equip us in our task as preachers of the gospel, namely pray, walk, and speak. We read from Colossians 4, verse 2 to 6. Devote yourself to prayer, being watchful and thankful, and pray for us, too, that God may open a door for our message, so that we may proclaim the mystery of Christ, for which I am in chains. Pray that I may proclaim it clearly as I should. Be wise in the way you act towards outsiders, and make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. First, there's prayer, persistent prayer. Pray that the door will be opened for the word, that the gospel may be preached boldly. Prayer is essential. It's an essential part of our task. And this includes persevering, vigilant prayers. Not everyone can go to a far place to be a missionary, but everyone can pray for the spreading of the gospel. And by praying for it, you become a fellow missionary. Secondly, we are called to act wisely towards people outside the congregation. We must walk in wisdom towards them. Our whole life, our whole way of life must bear witness to wisdom. This means that unbelievers must be in our minds and that we must deliberately live in such a way to convince them of the truth of the gospel. We must make the best of every opportunity to convince them of the gospel with our true lives. Thirdly, we must speak right, always friendly and full of good taste. Our words should be full of grace and seasoned with salt. We must not speak condemningly out of the high, but in humility, because the essence of the gospel is grace. Our words must be tasteful, and we must be ready with an answer, with the answer if we are asked. The answer is always the grace of Jesus Christ and a living relationship with Him. It is in this relationship that we keep on praying. It's this relationship that makes us walk in wisdom and that makes our words gracious and tasteful. Praying, walking, speaking witnesses of the Lord. This is who we are. Good night.